This is Come to Daddy with Reuben K, the podcast for people who find joy in the macabre, hilarity in the sexual, and themselves in the gutter after 1.5 margaritas. So, sad sluts with a drinking problem, I salute thee. I'm not saying I've got mummy issues, but all the women in my life have landed somewhere on the spectrum from Glenn Close to Ursula, and I'm not mad about it. It's me, Reuben K, comedy's most sentient cabana, and I am here at the Melbourne Comedy Festival where the who's who of comedy is here, which means Amanda is not. Because she's not a who's who of comedy. She's beautiful, she's wonderful, she's incredibly strong and fiercely intelligent, but she's also more of a what's that of comedy. Amanda, how are you doing in the capitalist hellscape, the smoking cum rag for the morally bankrupt that is London?
Sorry, what was that Reuben said about comedy? Anyone who's anyone? I couldn't hear. It's just I was polishing my British Comedy Award. Just put that over there. I've got a big thank you this week because we're number 2 on the Apple podcast. We're number 2 on the Apple podcast download charts in Australia. So thank you very much everybody for listening, downloading, commenting and all those other things that I always get wheeled in to ask you to do. So it's working. Oh, I think I can see just on that British Comedy Award, just a little smear there, just there.
That's lovely, Amanda. So let's get into it. My guest today is an Australian... That's my grinder. My guest today is an Australian icon of entertainment. From RuPaul's Drag Race to hosting the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, proving that you can be white and thin and still make it in showbiz. Come to Daddy, Rhys Nicholson.
Hello. Was that really your grinder?
Yeah.
It's got a different noise from my day.
Yeah,
Is the broop noise still a thing?
No, I just have a special one.
Oh.
Do you know what happened once? My mum saw me interacting on Grindr and, of course, she just saw the messages and went, how do I get my messages to be that colour? Those nice colours. And I just said, be raised by you. She didn't get it.
I never used, I had Grindr, but I've been with my husband, Kyron. I was 21 when we got together. I got some fucking done. But I never used, I think I was too shy to use it for meeting up with people. I was more meeting people at parties and blowing them after I'd been kissing them for 10 minutes because I got bored.
Yeah.
But you almost used to have pen pals on Grindr. There was people that I would talk to every day that I think were similar to me.
That's not the recommended instructions.
No, but it was very, we were during a civil war, just writing to each other
You're there just stitching a flag.
My dear hot dad, the days are long.
I got to say, when I was younger, I was so scared of meeting guys. I had such a fear of oh, well, this is the one where I die.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
It's almost like maybe culture was telling us that our lifestyles would make us die.
Who knew? And now, do we still listen to that advice?
I will die for being gay, but for different reasons, probably.
Well, I'll be probably there. I don't have a joke
I'll
for that.
I'll see you in hell.
Thank you. I just want visitors.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome. Let's do some little questions.
Yes.
Because our listeners don't know you.
No. Hello.
Hey, this is Rhys. Hey, can you tell us what your bedroom at home looked like when you were a kid?
When I was little?
Yeah.
I reckon when I was really little, I shared a room with my sister, who is 7 years older than me. So that must have been a nightmare for her.
Yeah, that's awful.
Imagine being 12 and you've got a 5-year-old living in your room. What a nightmare.
Hot.
I did have a racing car bed. It was missing a wheel.
No. What a metaphor.
Yeah. Fast, but it has the possibility to go fast, but it can't.
Yeah.
But then when I got my own room, and we had no money when I was growing up, and so I did a lot, my room was just full of stuff. It sounds grimmer than I mean it to, but just stuff that I'd found. My sister and I were both big council pickup people.
Did you live in a tip?
I mean, by the end of it, kind of
Is there a chain link fence and a Doberman?
I always wanted a TV in my room, but I wasn't allowed to have one. Plus, we couldn't afford one.
Yeah.
So I found a old VHS player and a computer monitor and plugged the computer monitor into and my mum kind of couldn't fault it. She was like, well, you've made a TV. You know how you could tape off, I would use the VHS player as, anyways, this is not interesting, but
Dan, does a computer monitor receive the TV
yeah,
signals?
with a little AV thing.
I think,
and then the the VHS, because in order to be able to tape stuff off the TV in the 90s, people might not remember
This is
VHSs.
fascinating stuff. So what was your favourite childhood meal?
Anyway, my room looked messy. It was very messy. I loved, like, I had a lot of classic, I think, baby queer, a lot of posters of, like, pop stars and stuff that probably my dad, my parents are very supportive and great people, but my dad probably would have been like, well, finally they're getting interested in the female form. It's like, no, Dad.
No, Dad, that's Cher.
That's Cher, and I'm just getting interested in the Corrie.
Yeah.
That's what's happening.
When she rode the cannon, I wanted to be her on the cannon.
Like, I had on my book when I was like maybe year 9, on my like school folder book, I had a picture of Justin from Queer as Folk, the American series.
Right.
I was so into I think his name's Randy Harrison.
Randy Harrison is also like a great singer.
I don't care.
No, very
Couldn't give a shit.
pretty.
That's not what he's. Anyways, I was so obsessed with him. Anyways,
So like, if you don't know what we're talking about, he looks like the acceptable version of gay veal.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, but and probably just as scared, just as not able to move.
Do you know what I used to have, which I thought would really mask my queerness? G.I. Joe.
A girlfriend.
Yes. And G.I. Joes.
Oh yeah, and then you just make him scissor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I had an Action Man.
Yep.
I
He-Man.
Oh.
I loved the muscly skeleton, was so sexual to
Yeah.
me. And now I look in the mirror and I see why.
Yeah, it's like all of those and I would get my sister's Barbies and make like Action Man and Barbie go on dates together. And then she had like one of the little cars.
Were they passive aggressive dates where she's like, why aren't you talking to me
Yeah,
anymore?
like and then her and her friend would like Thelma and Louise each other off the top of a doll's house. Like always trying to create drama. Like, these are strong women. I just always wanted like show business. Like, did you ever do this? I did a lot of when I was a kid. I was obsessed with like women drinking martinis. I
Yes.
used to put on my mother's robe and fill a martini glass with water and like walk around the house.
Spilling it when you gestured.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and I think I misunderstood that it was an olive, and I would put a pickled onion on a stick and just put
That's
it
a
in the
Gibson martini. That's even
that's
more
true.
sophisticated.
water. Yeah. So I'm just I wanted to be a drunk burnout woman when I was like 8.
So while all this is going on, what are your parents like?
My parents are pretty great, stressed people. They are both artists. And
What's their medium?
my dad is a ceramicist. He works with cooked dirt. But he's my dad is a really good ceramic, like he makes, but mostly like functional kind of like pottery,
Yeah.
but then also does what we call in our house like art pots. And he's like really good at throwing, and he makes these huge kind of pieces. And my mum was an artist, worked on the business with him, and then we went bankrupt in the 90s. And moved in with my grandmother for a while. And then my mum studied to become a teacher, and she's now a principal.
Oh.
Yeah. But she was an art teacher for years. But
What
so I
kind of-
think they were very, like, when I was like, they've always been very deeply supportive. I'm very lucky to have supportive parents, but at the same time, we're always very wary of me going to the arts. Like, mum definitely wanted me to get a dip ed and that sort of thing. That was like, I think it was a little bit like, do not do what we did. And
My parents were the same. My dad saw me perform at the Hamburg State Opera, and after I came off stage, went, "You've still got bartending as a backup,
yeah,
right?"
totally.
Did you have like hobbies growing up apart from obviously the dolls?
Heaps. I think I wanted to, I remember no sport, obviously, even though my dad
Shocked.
was the coach of a soccer team and I was in it for like one season.
And what was that like?
Poor guy, like he was a really good soccer player, my dad, and was like, I'm going to connect with my child. And we are very close, my dad and I, but that was not a situation that was possible.
You're just running around in shiny fabrics, making a drama out of
and
something?
classic queer kid situation of calling them costumes, not uniforms, and like calling them rehearsals and that sort of thing.
I love
like,
that,
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
Hey, what are your parents' names?
Michelle and Sean.
Michelle and Sean.
Michelle and Sean.
Lovely. Whereabouts are we talking in the world?
When I was growing up, Newcastle.
And what is describe Newcastle in like 2 sentences. For
When
our
I
listeners.
lived there, I've described it on stage before as the first half an hour of Billy Elliot.
Very good.
Like, it's like a coal mining town, a lot of mining, not much dancing. It's like it was a pretty aggressive place. But now, when I go back there to visit family, it's like, because when I lived there, it was just a skate park and a methadone clinic. But now it's like quite lovely and they've got really good things there, and I'm so fucking annoyed. I'm so annoyed that it's so good now. Like all the Sydney like media people have moved up there, and it's such a fucking nightmare.
It's a real awful thing to kind of realize, the world is getting better in so many different ways. And the people now who are in our position are not going to go through all of that trauma that we went through. I was talking to a mate of mine who's an older gay man. It's like, anyone can just dye their hair blue and say they're queer now. And I was like,
isn't that good?
That's what we fought for.
I totally get I understand the frustration, because at the same time, I am so happy about this. But when I see because I came up as a stand-up, 15 years ago, which isn't that long in the scheme of things, but I still remember having to all the queer comics had to make a joke when we walked out about it. Like, so the audience was like, okay, good, they know.
Yeah.
And
every queer comic has been said, sorry, ladies.
Yeah, sorry, ladies, or I know what you're thinking.
I know what you're thinking is my most hated sentence, and I've said it so many times.
Or the I'm the cross between, and saying like blah blah blah, and ending with and regret. Yeah, that kind of thing, which I'm so guilty of, and still sometimes will find myself trapped in a gig.
Show.
Yeah, like you can't. It has to exist, and now queer comedians are kind of able to just start like at Comedy Republic, like a comedy club in Melbourne that I co-own. I sit backstage and I see all the baby queers getting up doing shows. And there's a part of me that's like, well, that's great, isn't it? And there's a part of me that's like, you fucking, how dare you? Don't you know I had to make a little joke at my own expense 15 years ago?
You're just getting up and starting gear. And none of it's about your sexuality.
They don't even care that you're non-binary. People still can't even work that. I don't even know what it is, and I am that.
Do you think when you first started comedy, because you started comedy 15 years ago in the hinterlands, that your parents were also were they cautious or worried at all?
I think so, but at the same time, like wildly supportive. Like my dad used to drive me to gigs when I was like 18 and like wait out the front of the pub
while the pots were in the kiln.
Yeah, like genuinely. Like I like there's a sulfur smell that I find really comforting because it smells like our backyard. Like,
and the hell we will both eventually
go
to.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm going to love it. I'll be like, oh, this is like home.
Dad?
Oh, yeah, you are here. Okay, great. Yeah, like very supportive, but also very, I think, confused by it. Like kind of always knew that I wanted to be a performer, but like they used to let me, when we lived in Newcastle was like a 2-hour train ride away from Sydney. So I started when I was like 16, but then, doing like open mic gigs and stuff. When I was about 17, they would let me get on the train after school on like a Wednesday, and there was a couple gigs, and I would go to Sydney, do an open mic, and then get home at like 11:30 at night, and then go to school the next day. Like they were like, like the fact, I guess they were just trusting.
But when you were doing comedy gigs at 16, did you still look like ventriloquist Chucky?
Yeah, more so. Like even I put on weight since it. Like the bone structure was really
amazing.
But I wasn't wearing makeup, and I had like really bad acne. And I was doing jokes about like school, but then also trying to get in to these like pubs saying that I was 18. Like I'd sign up to open mic competitions and stuff. And like
nothing but like a bow tie and cystic acne to get you into a pub.
Like, which is, I think part of the reason the way that I look on stage has developed is because it started with, I used to put on way too much makeup to cover up all the acne that I had on my face.
Oh, that's interesting.
And so I became a ventriloquist dummy because I didn't know how to do makeup. And now it's like kind of not my signature thing, but it's like it's how people.
You've got a sheen. You've got a lovely look.
People do not recognize me in
so
you've got a thing.
That wasn't meant to be that.
I mean, coming from you. Jesus Christ.
Hey, do you have any other siblings?
I have an older sister.
Your older sister,
Sierra.
Sierra.
Ceara.
That's a nice
I can't
name.
pronounce any of the names in my family, but she lives in New York now. She sells rare books.
That is very fascinating. Why aren't we interviewing her?
It would be better.
Yeah.
She's more interesting. She is far more, isn't that, do you have this in your, like there are people in my family that are so much more interesting than me?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
Like honestly, they're so lovely. They're lovely people, but I'm the fascinating one.
See, I'm lucky. Have you ever heard of a band called Machine Gun Fellatio?
Love Machine Gun Fellatio.
So my uncle was in Machine Gun Fellatio. So my uncle is Chit Chat from Machine Gun Fellatio. So he was kind of my like North Star in the family of like, my parents are very supportive and stuff, but kind of not really having any inkling of what I wanted to do really. And then there was this guy that was like, oh yeah, show business. It's totally possible.
What kind of parenting style do you think your parents used with you?
It was a real it takes a village situation, I reckon. Like, because we lived with my grandmother for a long time, when we ran out of money, and was like not my parents' fault. Like, as in they.
No, ceramics have always been booming.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And you know what's frustrating? They kind of are now. Like ceramics are, and my dad makes really beautiful, precise things.
Yeah.
And now ceramics are so shit.
Yeah.
Like just
And
those
the
kind
shit
of
stuff
like.
is selling.
I had a mental breakdown. Anyways, Etsy, like the amount of fucking Etsy stores that are just like because of a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my grandmother kind of was like a third parent, and then a lot of aunts and uncles just kind of around. Like we're a pretty tight knit family, and there was a lot of just like dumping of kids places.
Was the grandmother being a parent like a source of conflict at times?
It's a good question. I have thought sometimes, like we're very close with my grandmother, and she's great, and she turned 90 a couple of days ago actually.
Happy birthday, Nan.
Happy birthday, Nancy. I realize Nancy.
No, really.
Yeah, there
Nancy
you go.
the Nan.
Nancy the Nan.
That's lovely.
I think it was maybe.
Sounds like a Victorian prostitute.
Hello, I'm Nancy the Nan. Flowers for sale and my pussy. And that's a little musical we're working on. I think it must have been a conflict sometimes because she was also parenting us as a grandparent.
Which is very different to parenting as a parent.
Oh, and also my mum's the eldest of 4, so she would have gotten like scary Nancy probably, like, 1950s and 60s mother, like,
no wire hangers.
But genuinely, like she used to like, hit them and stuff.
Yeah.
And then suddenly she's watching us.
I'm going to have some more chocolate. I'm your grandmother. I'm spoiling you. It's my job.
Yeah. Like and we still, all of us, all the cousins still every Christmas and birthday get a card from Granny with $50 in it that says, her go-to phrases, I love you. Thank you for loving me. And every time I open it, I'm like, oh my God, Granny. My granny is so, like she was quite coy when she was young, like when she had kids and stuff. There's a story in my family that they always used to eat drumsticks and wings because she couldn't say breast to the butcher. Like she was and now her favorite show is Game of Thrones, and she like reads fucking horny books.
Yeah, she does.
And I think it's because her husband died when she was like 55.
And still had to get her groove back.
And she kind of had to like, and she never was in another relationship or anything, but she had to learn how to drive at 55. She had to like get on top of, that kind of classic, like, kind of had to get her life
my life
together.
and I've got my independence and now I've realised I'm horny.
Yeah. So she's just reading a lot of...
Which is what we all want for our nan.
She's got if you tease her about it, she's like, well, at least it's not Danielle Steele. That's trash.
So she's classist.
Yeah,
in her
these have good stories.
I remember when my grandmother died, my dad and I were cleaning out her
Always
flat.
a stressful thing to do.
So stressful. And interesting to like look at my dad relating to his mum, who I had only ever thought of as my grandmother.
Yeah.
But then we were cleaning out the cupboards and I picked up this thing and I was like, what's this? And Dad's face did what your face did. And he went, and then I realized I was holding in my hand, like my grandma's from Russia, and it was like this like Soviet dildo, and it had a wall plug.
Which is the name of your band,
It
right?
is indeed. Yeah, it's Machine Gun Fellatio follow-up album with Soviet dildo, but it had a wall plug, and my dad being faced with the idea of my grandmother having like the jackhammer of orgasms.
How? I don't think you should ever plug a sex toy in, right?
Well,
is that still a commonplace?
I don't think it's common now. Not unless you're requiring like G-force.
Or like, like that seems insane. I don't want to put anything inside of me.
Correct.
That's attached to a...
Yeah, but I don't think they thought about these things back then.
How many people...
They prescribed
got
cocaine. Yeah. How do you like your nan done? Medium rare?
Yeah, like you're essentially... If it's
I got a nice sear.
Yeah, you can... you're essentially sous videing your nad's insides. And you've already, if it's got a thermometer on it, you can check the internal temp, whether it's done or not.
Just so I know whether she's done or not.
Yeah.
That's perfect, because as men, we would never know.
Imagine, oh God, paramedics must see a lot of stuff in their life. Where imagine coming, like, the power's gone out on this grid. Let's go, and then they fight, like, something smells like burnt hair.
They come to East Q to this, and they go all the way up the stairs to the 3rd-story apartment.
And you're still, like
this. My nan's there, but her hair's like straight out.
And she's going, woo!
She looks like Cynthia from the Rugrats.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of the Rugrats, how was coming out?
Kind of, I wish I had an incredible story about this. Kind of fine.
Yeah?
Like, you know, again, Newcastle, I got the usual, like, go home faggot type of thing. It's like, I
Cute.
am home. I like, you know, I went to a performing arts school as well. I went to school that you had to audition to get into.
What do you mean you went to a performing arts school in Newcastle?
There's this school, it's called Hunter School of Performing Arts, or as we called it, the Hunter School of Puffs and Tarts. And that's who we were known as around the country.
It's very good.
And
But also, is that not just... Didn't it feel suspicious that, hi, in the middle of a mining town, we're going to set up a school for performing arts? It feels just like a
it's
corral.
It's a trap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, every year, a whole year would go up to the mountains and a bunch of them wouldn't come back. I don't know, whatever.
But then the crops were great for that year.
The sun would shine and the mountain monkey was fed once again. So I didn't really have it. I mean, I think it was more, there wasn't too many gays around. And I think I did that thing where I became so faggy. Like, almost as a kind of reaction
I can't
to that.
see it. I can't.
But like I used to wear, like, in the winter, I had a rabbit fur coat, like a jet black rabbit fur coat that I bought at a vintage store in Sydney, and I'd haggled the woman down, and I used to wear that to school. And I used to, like, I'd started to wear, like, a little bit of makeup.
And even the kids at the Hunter School of Puffs and Tarts
were
like,
who's this faggot?
Yeah. Who's Dr. Javashole
And
over here?
And I used to, like, tease up my hair bigger and bigger, and it was like kind of this like, if you think I had
Wasn't a
bigger,
beehive, it was a hornet's nest.
Yeah, like it was full on, and I just would kind of like mince around school, and that was kind of my stage persona. Like that's what I was like when I first started doing stand-up.
I think there's something about when people are learning to perform or learning to be queer or embracing that side.
Is there a difference between those two things?
No, but you like, where am I on? Where am I off?
Yeah.
And when does that happen? Do your parents... I remember once my parents were kind of like vaguely okay about gay, but they were worried for me in the real world because
Yes.
I was a visibly gay kid.
Yes. Yeah, and I think my parents, they were kind of, you know, I think maybe more than other kids, my parents were pretty comfortable to come and pick me up from places. Like, as in, I think there was, you know, I mean, like, yeah, we'll be right. Don't get the bus home at 11 o'clock. We'll just come and get you. Like, I think there was that little thing where I think they never wanted me. They're really great people in that they never wanted me to feel like suffocated or like worried. But I think they wanted me to be aware that,
Alive.
Yeah, they wanted the best for me, but were just, I think the same, like concerned for like, you know, this could be bad for you, right? But I think
We're not trying to like curtail who you are, just...
And I think at the same time though, knowing that I moved to Sydney as soon as I was 18, I moved to Sydney. And I think they were like, yes, good, go. Like, I think most people would be worried about their kids moving to Sydney at that age, but they were like, oh, you're going to be fine.
My next
You're gonna
question was
flourish.
how did they deal with the moving? But they were like,
Go.
for it. What did they do about the non-binary element of coming out?
It's interesting where we still, like, I've told them about it and everything, and they're super on board with it, but they're probably the two people in my life that I never correct.
Yeah.
Like, because one, they're of a generation where, like, and they believe in it, but it's just like, you know, sometimes when I'm high, I misgender myself. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, as in your mouth is kind of locked around, and they're probably the only people. I mean, hilariously, my grandmother is like super. Like, I have we have another non-binary person in my family, and who changed their name, and it was so interesting watching my grandmother hear about that and not even stress about it for a second. Like, as in she never questioned it. She was just like, oh, okay. So they're Max now. All right. Like, and I think it's almost like when you're like 90 and you've seen it, you have context for everything.
Yeah.
And you kind of have context for like world wars and things. You're like, this seems like a thing not to worry about.
Yeah, it's a very easy solve.
Yeah. Like, and she's at a point in her life which is like, I don't know. Whereas like, I think parents are still at the age where they're like, what? I don't know about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think totally fine with it. I think potentially don't quite understand it, and probably, I'm guessing, have probably had a couple of conversations about it. They're like, what do you reckon that's about? But also,
I mean, we're already paying attention to you.
yeah.
So
it feels like another thing for us to another hoop to jump through.
yeah.
But I think they are just willing. I think I'm so lucky that I have artsy parents that they are just willing to go like, yeah, all right, I've heard less crazy things, I guess. I think it's hard to, they had gay friends like when they were like, our age. And so that's like my mum's best friend, Neil, is gay. So they could wrap their head around that. But I think it's still, they didn't know any genderqueer people in Newcastle in the mid-'80s. Or turns out, I don't know if there were that many trans people in far north Queensland.
You actually now you got a real marriage to Kyron, which means you get a whole new set of parents. What's their deal?
What's
the
it all
deal?
about, Alfie? What's the deal with in-laws? My in-laws are great. They're great people. They are business people. They are divorced. They divorced later in life. They divorced when Kyra and I were together. And so that was like very soon after us being together, suddenly I'm like, comforting Kyron during a divorce. It's like, this feels like something that should have happened a few years ago. I'm very close with his mum. I like his dad. We like each other enough, but he's a business guy. And I think he only genuinely maybe, I think there was maybe a vibe of he maybe thought I was coming to steal like they've got a bit of money.
Right.
And I think there might have been a bit of a feeling of like, this
yeah.
guy's coming to steal our money. And then I became successful. He's like, oh, maybe I can have some of this money.
Yeah, the minute the gold digger starts getting a huge career on TV.
I watched him at a show once kind of counting the seats and asked Kyron how many. But not this, I'm not saying this in a toxic way. It was just like,
that's his frame of reference.
Seeing his parents and my parents interact when we got married was really something, because they are such different people. But it is also proof, like Kyron's mum is the greatest, most like salt of the earth. We have it's so interesting to me, like Kyron is someone who will call in a crisis will like call his mother, and I'm not that way. And it's nothing against my parents. It's just like a different relationship that we had, and it's so like if you had a problem, would you call your parents with a problem?
I would call my mum.
Interesting.
I would, but for certain problems.
Yes.
And also, sometimes I would be calling it not to get the advice or the help, but to talk the problem out and come to my own solution.
It's me and my parents, yes.
Yeah.
Whereas Kyron will, I think, even though he's like, him and his mother are quite similar. And yeah, I just find that really, and they're like retired people and they've got a business that makes them a bit of there's
part of the problem.
Not part of my problem anymore. Used to be a problem for me and not anymore.
Hey, we're going to wrap it up, I think. Yes.
Sure.
This has been so lovely. We have one last hurdle for you to jump through.
Yeah.
It's called the pick and mix. Pick and mix, pick and mix. It's time for us to do pick and mix.
I reckon holidays is one of them.
Family hellholes.
Got any recollections of family vacations?
Again, with no money, we didn't go on holidays. When we did, they were like off-season holidays. We would go to this place called Southwest Rocks, and it would be like pouring rain, and we'd be like sitting in the bistro of a pub,
have a good time,
looking at a grey beach. Like it may as well have been like down by the ocean where like Jimmy Savile lived. Like
great.
But we would go to this place called Southwest.
So much candy.
Like we go to Crescent Head, ice creams as well. We go to this place called Crescent Head where all the retired football players would take their families. And I remember seeing like from New South Wales, Australia, obviously. So, and it was like an NRL, like rugby. And so you'd see like
men with concussions and battered wives
just wandering around, just these like dead eye. There was this guy called the Chief, Paul Harrigan, who actually like wasn't a bad guy and like got married early, but his body was clearly so broken. Like I had this vivid memory of walking down the beach in a caravan near the caravan park that we'd stay, and seeing he was the face of NIB at the time. Like the health insurance place.
Gotcha.
And he, I was like,
it's not knowing what that is.
Yeah, I was like,
what is health insurance?
How do I die soon?
Yeah. How do I insure health?
But I realized in all those ads he was not moving. Like he was like he was always standing really still, going, "Hello, it's me, the Chief." Like that is in Newcastle and surrounding areas, they were the celebrities, like the football players, like these broken, banged up men. But yeah, like I think our holidays were always pretty. I think the message of my parents is we are doing our best. Like they were always trying to like. There's a story. I'll give you the abridged version, but I think this perfectly sums up my parents in a like the way that we would have holidays and stuff. The night that they went bankrupt, that they realized they had no money and they didn't know what they were going to do. They had $14. I've been telling this like a longer version of this story on stage recently, but my sister and I were watching TV, and I would have been about 5, and my sister, not knowing what was going on, just asked if we could get Magnums. She wasn't. She wasn't
expensive.
This is 1995. Yeah, this is like
$3.60.
Yeah,
or $2.50, I think.
and this is like only a Viennetta could surpass.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, this is like peak. And my mum did this amazing. She went out and she spent the last $14 they had on Magnums, and then we sat out the front of the house and we ate them.
I think that's an amazing scene, and that's an amazing testament to your mum.
Like, that's it. Like, and I think that's what they always did. Like, on holidays and all that kind of stuff, they were always just like, everything's fine. Everything's fine, even though everything was absolutely not fine.
What are you going to do with $14?
Exactly. Buy Magnums.
Buy Magnums. And then you all just sit there on the steps of your house as someone just puts a repossessed sign.
Like, literally, like, it's like such a, and it also made me realize, like, when I think about it now, I realize it's like, oh no, I wouldn't have done that. Like, I would have, I would have.
What would you have done with that $14?
Yeah, I would have been like, they don't make Magnums anymore, and then I would have eaten them by myself in the bathroom.
They're fair.
Yeah.
Daddy, look, I'm doing a dive.
Yeah, what's a way you've tried to get your parents' attention over the years?
Drug and alcohol abuse. Probably the most obvious one. I mean, I was very dramatic as a kid. One, were you always putting on plays? Were you one of those kids? We always
100%.
put it like we had a dress up box, always putting it. That's kind of the lower end of the spectrum. But higher end, I definitely would like just make my life seem more dramatic than it like, I remember trying very hard to break my leg once because I wanted attention. Like, really psyching myself up to do it.
How were you doing
I had a
it?
medal. This is insane. I've only just remembered this. This is a sense memory.
Yeah.
I had like a steel. I would have been about 14 by this point. I had like a steel bed, like just a regular like framed bed, and I remember like standing and just wanting to, like, willing myself to like smash my leg into it.
You're insane.
I didn't
Like, I always knew you were a little bit, but that's fucked.
I just really wanted
broken leg.
My sister had broken her arm, and I wanted that.
That's evil as well. It's not even just I want attention is fine, but I want
her attention. And I wanted there was a girl that had broken her leg at school, and she was allowed to sit in the classroom during lunchtime and like play with the toys and stuff. And I was like, I want this. Right. She's allowed to be on the computer at recess.
You just trying to like self-hobble yourself like in misery.
I mean, in a way, my entire stand-up career is just me with a broken leg.
But you're outpacing all of us.
Yeah, but not.
How are you not recently?
not
no,
this
you
year.
are. You're on TV. You're doing so well.
I'm
You've
doing
got
all right.
shows
I'm having
at the
a
channel.
nice life.
Yeah, you're a good person, Rhys Nicholson.
Thank you. Can you say that in my dad's voice?
You are a good person. Sorry, I had
there
Emma
we
Schiano
go.
script on. So, you're a good person, Rhys Nicholson. Well, guess what? You've actually led us into the final hurdle. The final hurdle.
Is it death? Please let it be death.
It's
anyone smell gas?
It's ego death. That's me.
Yeah.
It's called Shall I Be Mother?
Shall I be mother?
Mm-hmm.
Where you get to look into my eyes and imagine that I am Michelle or Sean or some amazing non-binary Frankenstein of the two of them, and speak from your shriveled little heart. What would you say to them now?
I'm probably never going to get better at calling you. I'm sorry about that.
Rhys Nicholson, thank you for your honesty, your vulnerability, your cheekbones.
Thank you. What a thrill. What a thrill to be here looking in the mirror.
Hey, Rhys.
Yes.
Where can the Come to Daddy listeners find more of you?
You can. I'm always touring. RhysNicholson.com is where you can find. I'm about to do a UK tour. Like, I'm going to do Edinburgh, and then September, October, I'm going to be touring all around the UK and maybe Europe.
Amazing.
Throughout Europe, and then America. I'm going to go to America, and then I will quietly pass away at the end of November.
And if that's not enough for you, you can also find Rhys Nicholson in multiple episodes of Drag Race Australia.
Yes.
If you want more of me, you know where to find me, ReubenK.com or The Gutter. Rhys Nicholson, thanks for coming to Daddy.
I feel warm now. Oh, no, that's good.